system, or let the answer session after he's done. So think of some ideas or questions you might want to have answer, and be ready when he's ready.
Testing, okay. Well, thanks for having me, and motion to adjourn. No motion, so I guess I'm up here for a
Not
little bit.
seconded.
I appreciate that. I didn't know if I was going to come or not. I have been here 40-some years. I would say I was born in Las Vegas. I tell everybody my mom and dad had a little fling down there, and that's how well, thank you for that. Got a smile over there. So I've been up here, like I said, 40-some years, but Vegas was fun. That's kind of where I got my street degree. I call it Street 101. When I first came up here, well, maybe I'll back up. My dad has been, and ourselves and our family has been in the road construction business forever. And so my grandpa had what we call hot plants where they make asphalt and stuff. And so we learned to run tractors when we were pretty young. And so grandpa had a hot plant in Cedar City. So from Vegas, they started, our government started implementing this forced school busing stuff. So we lived a block from our school, and my mother was very involved in PTA, and it was like they were going to bus my younger brothers across town, the west side, which was a big criminal area. And so at that time, they took the opportunity to move up to Cedar City, get out of Vegas, because I don't think government should force you into anything. I mean that. I think they need to be out of our business, be out of our bedrooms, be out of everything that doesn't have purpose outside of what their duty really is as government. So we went to Cedar, moved up there. After school, there was no jobs really, and Mom didn't like the snow, so they ended up back in Dixie. So that put us here. I went on back to Vegas, got a no-brain job, ballet, etc. Actually, was quite involved in Vegas, more from the street end of it. I was a valet at the Mint Hotel. I had 2 or 3 jobs. Worked for Durabel Construction. Did an apprenticeship there, enough to qualify me to get my general contractors later. But then we came back to Dixie, St. George, and it was pretty cool here. It was safer, I think, but I missed the city life. I had a sister that lived still there and a couple other friends. So occasionally we go to Vegas, take advantage of the shows. And so that's a little bit of history that lands me here in St. George. My mother called me and said, why don't you leave Vegas, come up and fulfill Dad's dreams. You have 4 brothers. We have a paving crew. We laid the asphalt. So when people tell me it's hot, I just laugh at them because nothing's hotter than laying asphalt, 280 degrees. And the only help we could really keep was out of the jail. We grabbed the guys from the jail, really needed to work a couple days, and then Dad would fire him, and then we didn't do any work. But anyway, so that was a fun time. I got my general contractors in 1991. I really enjoyed building, and then our town got so crazy. I hadn't built a house in the last 5 years. The last 2 before that were for my daughters. Usually when I tell people I've done that for my daughters, people ask if I would adopt them, so I would build them a house, but I've had to say no many times. You know, sometimes you get a little tired, and I had concerns about our resources here, but it's probably enough about me. Maybe I have been encouraged to share with you, but I have a martial arts background. I actually found my sensei in Vegas building his room addition, and he kind of challenged me to come to a class, and my mom said, hey, you have 4 brothers, why would you need karate? You know, and so I went to the class, and I really was humbled. Loved the technique of such a small culture that had taken a farm tool to defend themselves against a sword. I thought, you know, that is really cool. So I love the genealogy of the history of karate all the way back from India to Okinawa to Japan to America. And the Americans had a lot of big ego. And so I kind of like the philosophy of the Japanese and the karate, because we train to be the greatest fighters, so we never have to. I'm sorry, but thanks for coming. All right, see ya. It's your bedtime. Actually, that's a joke, because some people had to leave, but it was important. So as you can tell, I kind of like to have fun. My buddy always said, don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff and concept. But so we'll get into the political realm pretty quick. We'll take some questions. I have ran before. I came close last time, and I've been criticized for running. And I just remind people that Abraham Lincoln ran 7 times. Could you imagine if he would have quit? You know, I mean, where would we be now? Maybe we'd all be slaves, who knows? You know, you never understood that. So you never want to give up when you want to serve the community. On my flyer, I talk a little bit about the things I've been involved in the chamber. I've had an energy business, StarMax Solar. We did thermal energy. I really thought that was cool. We did that in 2008 when everything stopped and we were in a recession. We had to restructure ourselves. So my mother is the reason I've been involved in our community. She supported the Diabetic Foundation. She was a nurse. She made us be involved in the community. So she would do the Spook Alley every year. And I got to play different parts. I was an executioner. I got to play Freddy Krueger. Freddy's back, you know. I got to really have some fun things with that. And it was fundraisers, all through private money, not tax money, to support the Diabetes Foundation and others. So through that time, years later, Mom's commitment to rebuild a senior center here. So if you're ever in town in St. George and you drive by the St. George Senior Center, you'll see a wonderful plaque dedicated to my mother, and they named the senior center after her. So anyway, Mom, good job up there. Switch over to Dad. He was a commissioner back in the 80s when we had 26,000 people in the whole county. And I remember that's probably why we found the importance of term limits. My dad always taught me that more than 2 terms, someone's in your pocket. You should serve and go home and let others participate. Also, my dad is the one who acquired the land for the fairgrounds. When they built the Dixie Center in 1997, it was like, hey, we don't need that. We have the Burns Arena. I guess what I'm saying is my dad was a visionary. I think that might have rubbed off a little bit on me because I am concerned now we'll switch over to St. George. Why am I running where my concerns are? As we have grown and we welcome so many to the neighborhood, our power grid's in a situation where we need to add another gas turbine to our power grid. We don't want to be having rollout power outages. Water's an issue. It goes beyond our borders. I have relationships with other city council and mayors. So I think that's important to have those relationships because everybody wants that water. I've always spoke that the Lake Powell pipeline would never happen. I've been criticized for that. I probably lost some elections over that, but I never thought it would fly anyway. I thought we should put our money in desalination plants and working toward purifying the water that we have, the underground water, the arsenic wells up by Enterprise. There's just so many things we can do there. So we can still have the water, because in the desert, water is gold. It really, really is. It's so important. And what I've found out too is if we don't follow a plan for that, for our water, the state will come down. People talk about the federal government's overreach. Well, our upper state can come down and mandate moratoriums and other little things to make sure the tap stays on. And you know, you have a right to live how you do. If you want a lawn, I'm an advocate for plant life. We take more and more out of it under the scope of saying we can conserve water. My wife always teased me about this, but if you really want to conserve water, I think you should take a shower with your significant other. There's one solution right there. I said that at some Rotarian meeting, the St. George one, they're so stiff there. There was a young guy who said, yeah, you know, and then the older guys were just kind of looking at you. So anyway, so maybe they need a life. All right, so we dealt with water. We also, people have asked me about, you know, protect the children. I think some people interpret that of me being against certain entertainment here. When I say about that, we've had an uptick in possible kidnapping. We've also, child trafficking has been an issue, so it's something that we're always taking a concern in. I've served in so many positions, but it's hard, you want to stay humble, but you want to let people know that you have experience in that. I've been a Chamber of Commerce president, so I understand the importance of small business, and my platform motto is empowering small business and working families. I think that's so important. And then my value simply is the golden rule. And if more people knew the golden rule, treat others as you would have them treat you. My one buddy, who's a capitalist, says the golden rule is those who have the gold makes the rules. And I always slap him about that. But, the whole ethnic criteria, ethics classes that they teach realtors is all designed from the golden rule. I thought that was pretty cool. If you ever get to look into their ethnic teaching, maybe all politicians should follow that. As Rotarians, we have the four-way test, and it's first, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build better friendships? And fourth, is it beneficial to all concerned? And I think that's a great model. And again, I am a Rotarian. I love being that because you get to step away from all the politics of life and just help people in general. So with that said, I probably exceeded my 2-minute talk.
This is a 30-minute talk.
Okay, well, thank you for that, and I appreciate you inviting me. Some say, well, why would you go over there where there's such a liberal atmosphere? Well, I've met conservatives, I've met all kinds of wonderful people here from all over the community, and I think that's what we are. We're a community and a family of all different kinds of people. So with that, I'd love to have the questions. If I don't have the answers, I definitely won't bull crap you. Is this edited? No. I almost said shit, so I'll try to keep that clean.
The FCC is not regulating this, so you're good.
Thank you. I'll keep the 4-letter words down low, like love. So anyway, with that, does anybody have any questions for me out there that I could answer for them? I'll try to always be transparent, straight up. We may not agree on different lifestyles, but respect needs to come on both ways.
So I'm going to go ahead and take the first question, and I'll ask you the same question I asked Austin the other day. And that is, what are your feelings on, or your personal feelings on the, what was it called? The bond? Yeah, the bond, GEO bond.
Oh, the GEO bond. Oh, thanks for bringing that up.
As well as, also, do you believe that the way that they're planning on spending the money is really the best use of that money? I know for myself, I would like to see one big park, like you would see in a lot of the big metropolitan cities. Even I've thought about the idea of converting one of the city golf courses that's losing money to maybe include museums or aquarium or something like that that's serves the broader appeal than just another neighborhood park or a shade at another neighborhood park. So I'll go ahead and let you take it from there.
Okay, thank you. The first one is the GEO bond. Then we can address golf courses. I've been accused of wanting to sell our golf courses, so we'll clarify that. The GEO bond, and it's easy to be critical of our existing council because I haven't been there, but I sure follow them. And so the GEO bond was, 20 years ago we had this bond. It was designed for public safety. A lot of people don't know this. And one thing, when you live long enough, you're an old dude like me, you get to see a lot of things. And so the GEO bond was originally for public safety. It's been converted over for parks and recreation. And I hate to tell you, but it's needed. A simple analogy would be that our lawnmowers are wearing out, and our tools, and there's certain things that need to be replaced. But I don't know if you guys can remember, it's a younger crowd, but impact fees and other things are supposed to cover the growth and handle these things. So there's been some mismanagement there. And with that said, they've shifted it over. We also have the ramp tax, which takes care of some of these things. And the positive things about this is both these taxes are on the ballot. So it's what the people get to decide. And that's what I think every tax should be. Fees are, to me, taxation without representation. You know, any council can vote in, oh, we're going to put a $5 fee like they did on our power bill. And when you have, and I see back there maybe taking notes and maybe you have a calculator, but check this out. If you put $5 a month on everybody on 90,000 meters, that's 450,000 times 12 per year. Do the math, that's a big chunk. And so, I don't know if you've seen your power bill lately. Mine, I was just like, oh my gosh, you know. My son-in-law is a lineman for Dixie Power. I think Dixie Power does a good job, but we have our own power station here, and that's why I think it's important we do put another power grid on there. So the GEO bond is going to be voted by you. Can we do better management in the future, those of us who are elected? That in another 20 years when that bond comes due, by the way, it's going to cost us $18 million when it matures. And when we could become self-sufficient for management, because I think right now we'd all chip in another $5 a month so we wouldn't have to face this $18 million bond. If we do the math, it's so much more beneficial for us to look at it that way. And that's because I've been a businessman for years. I understand balancing budgets. And at least understanding as a builder, I know I'm going to need more saw blades. I know my saw is only going to last so long. My vehicle, et cetera, it just goes on and on about management. So here we're with that GEO bond, so I have to say it's going to be up to you to vote for it, but we need it. I don't know where we take it from the other source. Golf courses. Back in the 80s, when I was with my brothers, there was a man called Herb Stratton. He owned Southgate Golf Course. And what I did is when our mayor, who has not been that friendly to me, but I pray for her all the time. I always wondered maybe if it's medication, I don't know, but anyway, I brought up the point that Herb Stratton owned Southgate Golf Course. The city of St. George did not build Southgate Golf Course. And the reason I brought it up is because they were using our police, and I have two nephews that serve on that police department. They were bringing in our officers to the city council meeting saying, we've got to raise these taxes, we have to vote on this budget, or we can't fund the police. And they were using these scare tactics. And so I came up to the podium and I said, hey, how much money do you need? What's the shortfall here? 50 million we could get for Southgate, or we could lease it out, we could keep it a golf course, however they wanted to manage it. But let's look there. And all of a sudden Greg wants to sell all the golf courses. No, that was just, we're giving them an alternative. It was never the city's in the first place. I have to be careful because I say they bled him out of it, but basically he had a tough couple summers and he couldn't pay his water bill. And so eventually they leaned it and Herb Stratton had to get rid of it. And the city got it. So anyway, what they did do though, because we were the ones paving the cart paths and they couldn't pay our bill, the city gave us a 4-year membership for all my brothers. And I golf a little bit. My wife makes me go out there and relax a little. But my brothers never golf, so what we did, we go ride the carts around. We had our membership, we check in, get the carts, and we raise hell in these little carts. And I know they didn't like that, but for 4 years, so what? So with that said, I golf out at Sand Hollow because my buddy volunteers out there and he gets me on there. So people think, wow, you're pretty rich, you get to golf out there. Well, I am rich in love. That's about as far as it goes. I'm so happy that my kids and family love me. But that's kind of how I get to golf. It's the people that I know and want to share that time with me. And when you're a builder or you need to do a little business, you really can captivate their time for a couple hours. It's kind of a good thing that wise. And if you do it right, oh my gosh, they would go over there, the geese would come in to the golf course and on those ponds. And one day someone had shot all these geese. Well, we can't have them crapping on our greens. I just thought, man, you sell the golf courses on being environmentally balanced with bringing wildlife in and having to plant life and building oxygen, etc. But actions like that, I mean, we could have scared them off. We could have done so many different things. That's just my own venting. So I hope I handled golf courses with that. And I hope now that everybody knows that Southgate was never ours in the beginning, right? It was always the redheaded stepchild. So there's an avenue for us. If there's a shortfall, I saw some art about a redheaded stepchild. That's my friend. You'll have to ask her about art. And he's a nice guy. All right, so you have the microphone. There's a question here.
I was actually going to ask who's next.
Are your batteries out? Okay, so the nurse asked, there was this little girl and she had swallowed like a whole handful of quarters. And so a nurse asked how she was doing, and the doctor said, there's been no change. Okay, we'll try to fill in. I think we're still on tape there.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're going to do a little rap with my new friends over here a little later, so while we're filling in time, we need words that rhyme with art.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So what do you think about the recent special events controversy with the lawsuits and all of those things regarding what the city council has chosen to do in regards to the lawsuit? And do you think the lawsuit could have been avoided in the first place?
Yeah. I'm glad I came here because I was expecting that question. Until we have a balanced policy for everybody, right now we do not. And it's going to come down to certain parental rights, which is everybody's right to choose where they go. Right now we do not have a balanced policy over that. It's not fair from one to the other, and so you will continuously see conflict. And that's kind of how I feel about that. I kind of feel similar to like being a business person. I used to put on boxing shows. We had Powder Puff and Tough Men, and different people would sign up for these events, and it was all on me whether I sold the tickets and it became successful or not. The venue was always an issue where we could do that. I think sometimes our cities like to restrict small business in certain events more than help them, because where is really the liability and the profit, whether that shows stay, whether it's boxing, fighting, adult entertainment, etc. Some I think that's where the issue has really been brought up. How are we going to classify a policy that is fair and balanced to everybody? And I will always, regardless of what you believe, what your stature is, how tall or small you are, how heavy or thin you are, I will have an open door policy, and I always have an ear for most people. I know as they get to know me, they have, people in the past have labeled me. You're this, you're that, and they try to draw you into their groups. Well, raising 5 girls, I have learned I'm either a good listener or been manipulated by women all my life. My wife always says, would you quit saying that? But it is true. So you do learn to listen. Certain things are important for others. Some people just have an agenda on particular one issue. So I like to, I hopefully be the full package so we can address everything from energy to business to entertainment. Because it is really, the burden is on whatever promoter who's ever putting the show on. It's really, they take the risk. Security, safety, etc. I hope, did that answer that? Thank you. Oh, there's a hand up over there. Okay, we're going to trade. I like this one. It's a little darker.
So what exactly drove you to wanting to be in politics, and what is your history in politics?
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. I will give Mom the accolades on that. I saw my mother earlier develop what they call a block home. really good things. You can change policy to good things. In Las Vegas, she started the block home, which was part of the PTA, and any child that saw this sign said block home, if they were being chased, harassed, or hurt, they could run right into that home without having any issues. And I thought, that's really good. And then Mom ran for the school board, and then my dad, I think my mom pushed my dad more than anything to become a county commissioner, because there was some spending that was just going nutty there. At one time, they wanted to spend millions of dollars on what water levels there was in the Virgin River. And I remember my dad said, well, we'll just pay Jethro to go down there and look in the river and say, oh, it's flowing pretty good, I mean, government can spend. And I'm a friend of the taxpayer. I really am. And I understand what the duty of government should be. Number one should be public safety for everybody. And I was very fortunate to be a National Golden Gloves coach. Never expected that, but I worked with a lot of different ethnic groups in punitive sports. It was a great way to take that extra energy and channel it into a ring. These guys could beat on each other and women and love each other at the end. And just so you know, I trained the first female pro fighter, Summer DeLeon from Utah, right here. Took her to #1 in the world. She was a wonderful, wonderful girl. Still love Summer so much. So with that said, I understand that policy can change and make, and if you allow government to just give them an open book ticket, they'll take whatever you give them and just keep going. We were in a recession, we had to tighten our belts up, and so should they. Now, what about our budget? People are complaining about it. We need a third-party audit. If we did a third-party audit that was not involved in the politics of our budget, we can really see where our spending is, and then we can go from there. A lot of people are running a campaign on, our budget's $529 million. Okay, true, but in fairness, enterprise taxing, there's some other things that are going on. The biggest chunk of our budget, too, is pensions and insurance for our city employees. And I'm not knocking them as having a job, but sometimes it's a little imbalanced when we have like power linemen making $150,000 a year in LA pays their guys $100. I mean, there's quite a difference in there. So when we come into what we are in a recession, and when we're in a recession, we cannot be looking at raising taxes. And this council is on record as saying next year they will be raising their taxes. So that inspired me a lot. I hope that answers your question. Thank you. I try not to shoot the crap and be a politician. Whether we agree on things or not, I just want to come from my heart.
Okay, I've got one more for you. This is again Trevor Minor. As a cafe owner, and as you're standing on my stage up there with the musical albums and the instruments behind you, St. George has these crazy laws that are sometimes referred to as the footloose laws that tell me when my customers can and can't dance, and if I have to get a permit to allow people to dance. And it seems like a constitutional right that I should be able to dance when I want to, when I hear music. Would you be interested in going through and getting rid of all these old, just ridiculous laws? And obviously Footloose is one, but I'm sure there's so many more.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go beyond just those laws and the restriction of signage. And I have a guy who has a sweet little antique store over in Bloomington that wouldn't let him put one of those squiggly guys because he's so back in the corner. And I was like, when is that hurting anybody? I'll tell you this, I'll give you my word. If elected, and I should say when elected, I pray that it happens. Let's have a big dance party right here. Whatever that rule is, I'm going to dance right with you, okay? And let's bring that out to the attention. Whether it's good press or bad press, we need to bring attention to that and let's say how silly that was. Alabama used to have on their books, and maybe still, that you cannot catch fish unless you bait your own worm. You have to be able to put your own worm on your hook or you don't get to fish. Man, my first wife would have never allowed me to do that, because when I took her fishing, I baited her hook every time, so I'm probably somewhere really broke the law. I think it's ridiculous. You know, I was born in the entertainment capital of the world. And when I first came here, I'd get a business card from somebody that said, landscaper, brain surgeon, attorney. I mean, they had all these other little things that you could make a living in here. And I look at some of the restrictions in small business, and I mean that from my heart. Small business is so restricted, it's a formula to fail. It should never, it should be a formula to empower. Thank you so much. All right, we got one more.
Do you support the local farmers market?
I'm a big farmer's market guy. You know, when I sold my house, I cut down my peach tree and my green apple tree. And the guy put in a little, he bought the house, so it's up to him. He put in a baseball cage for his kids, and I thought, oh, I miss that. I think that brings the people together. All farmers markets do. And I know there was a little controversy over certain things, but, you know, we got to get the politics out of it. You know, bring your fruit and vegetables. I think they've opened it up a little bit more to maybe some more art. Isn't it? Art, yeah. Because I'll plug my daughter, Gregan, has her little wreaths that she makes. We need an avenue for our local people to show their goods. And right now it's harvest time. I mean, the apricots are there. So I really do, oops, there's a little fly. I do miss my peach tree and things. So farmers market's a good thing. Let's keep it here.
A follow-up to that is, do you support using some of the city funds to offset the cost of that? And I can speak from personal experience as somebody who has sold goods at the farmer's market. The offsetting the city lets it, you know, their lease of the park or whatever has made it so that I can actually attend and make a little bit of money. I don't make a lot, and I'm sure a lot of the artists hardly make any.
Yeah.
But I know I pay about $35 to go to the farmer's market, which is an incredibly low rate. But if I had
You
to
get a booth for that?
Yeah.
How long? What are your hours over there?
At the farmer's market, it's Saturday from, I want to say, 8 to 12 for 4 hours.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I know a lot of other cities I'd be paying $300-400 for that.
Yeah,
which is
ridiculous.
the amount that I would make the entire day.
You should open it up
So-
for Friday and Saturday. Hey, I said in a meeting, I was there, I don't know if recognize a few of you, with the sponsorship of this and how it got a little ugly in there. There's a friend of mine also, that Laura, who was doing the health thing, got asked to leave, and I just want to tie that into you because she's very loving. She's the one who said I should come here because Trevor is so open-minded for community. Because, you know, Trevor put this out there for all of us to speak. And some of my other friends and buddies I talked to, well, I'm not going to speak over there. And Laura is the one who said to me, Trevor's a pretty decent person. And it's like when you have a friend who goes to a movie, right? And that friend says, oh, that movie's horrible. You don't take their opinion. You go to that movie and then it ends up rocking, you know? It's like when I was an older dude, I went to there was an old show about this odd couple. And it was for older people. My daughter thought it sucked, but I thought it was pretty funny myself. So I think that's what we have to do there. Farmers markets are good. Does the city need to sponsor it? Well, let's look at the city management there. What happened to Friday night? What happened to First Friday night? What happened to it? It's gone. Do you remember First Friday?
I think they moved it over the mall.
Ed Tracy took it. Ed Tracy took it to him to Washington because our chamber was, again, we're talking politics there. I loved it when they had it downtown and they moved it on the side street and it really benefited businesses there. So again, yes, the city needs to participate. Should the person running it profit? Well, same with First Night. I think whoever runs it can absolutely make some money. I mean, would that not be an incentive for us to keep it going? Let's pay who's ever in here. Let them make some money. My word. Then they pay us more taxes.
I think there is a misconception with that too. So for the farmers market, the city's not paying the farmers market anything. They're just waiving the fees.
Waiving the fee to
Right.
have the park.
Because currently how special events work, because the farmers market's once a week, they want those regulations to go into the special event permits, which they would have to pay $400 a week. Now, if you do the math on that, right, what the fee waivers allows, like Trevor was saying, vendors to pay $35 instead of paying exorbitant amounts of money for a booth.
And I've met the gal that runs that. I mean, I think it's cool. They brought up, if we want to address the Christmas thing and seeing people have such an opinion in here and in our community. And, I respect their opinion, but I've always been I was cut from, hey, if this is something that's not your bag, then you don't go. Just don't participate. And again, it puts the liability back on the others. So I appreciate those questions. I'm glad that we could have a dialogue and talk about it. Okay, now we have another candidate who may be asking me a question. Now this might be
It's a trick
unethical.
question.
Go ahead.
You can ask me a question back if you want.
Okay.
But this is your night. I just wanted just a little bit of clarity on the special event policy you have on your website. You talked about balance
Yeah.
when it comes to two groups of people who have conflicting beliefs and things.
Right.
When it comes to allowing events in a park, what does that balance look like to you? If you were elected on city council, you talk about the three current council members who voted for an event that cost taxpayers money. How would you have done that differently?
Well, we'd have to refuse everything at that moment instead of giving interest to others and then some that won't. So here's what we got to call out. We need, and this would be good for any event you're going to do, is we need to come up with the term of what age appropriate is and what is adult themed. And the reason I say that is because one of the most coolest drag shows, we're not going to avoid that I ever went to was in Vegas. But it was more like, is it RuPaul, isn't it, that does the drag? Yeah, well, and theirs is most about costumes, beautiful, because my daughter was a seamstress. And they would do Cher, Dolly Parton, Judy Garland, you guys are kind of younger, but there were some older artists. And I remember my buddy taking me there, and I was like, no way, these are not guys dressed up. Anyway, so that was their entertainment, and I went, and it was very well done. I think until we call out this, because still, it's going to be a parental right thing, depending on how you advertise it. When that's done, that's part of the policy. Now, I just don't want to be a typical campaign guy trying to get everybody's votes. And that's not going to be me.
It's really hard. I didn't try
Isn't
the
it?
same thing.
And I respect that, man. I got to know you. We've been to a couple events. We got to hear that Lindsay guy talk about the whole pass of the world. And I thought, that was pretty interesting. I was wondering how you personally thought his message went. But that won't be a question for you here tonight. But I will say this about all the candidates, and Steve Urquhart taught me this when he was our state senator. He thanked everybody, and I said, why would he do that? And then you learn. It takes courage or stupidity. I think it's courage.
I haven't figured out which one yet either.
It takes a lot to throw your hat in there to be service, because people are going to rip on and criticize you on stuff they don't know you. They have never walked in your shoes. They don't understand where you've helped and loved and hated. They don't know that, and you just hope you get the right person in there. I had a person years ago say, I'm not voting for you, Greg. I'm voting for so-and-so. And I thought, I can dig that. I can dig that better than saying, oh, I got your back, and then they do. They stick that knife in your back. Well, I guess he was truthful too, right? But I can appreciate more than that. Those that throw their hat in the ring and want to serve the community. And I was flattered when Danielle Larkin said at one of our gatherings, I think it was the Taurus thing, where she says, you know, I'm going to quote Greg saying, hey, if we all thought alike, we'd only need one of us. And I thought, Danielle, I said, wow, thank you, Daniel, for acknowledging me for saying that. And I truly believe that. I've been involved in many different think tanks, and you would be surprised what comes of those. From children, you get things that like, wow, you know, why didn't I think of that? Or somebody else come up with an idea, and you could say, that is really ridiculous in your own opinion. But I think that's what makes our world go around. And that, again, is why we live in a free country. My gosh, absolutely. Politics and religion are the toughest subjects. And myself personally, I have daughters that dabble in all different theologies. And that's what I influence to them, because they need to search and find their own path. Respect each other, we'll all get along. If there's an issue, it's trouble or bully or anything like that, because when I taught martial arts, we were known as the bully bashers. You know, we just love people to be kind. Anyway, with that, are we about wrapping it up?
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway, thank you so much for having me come. A standing ovation, wow. Oh, my word. All right, thank you, Trevor, for having me. Sincerely, thanks.
He likes some art. He's doing his part to paint York City.
All right, karaoke. Come on, start recording now. Here we go.
No, I'm not recording. There's no recording.
You didn't even record it?
I can, if you want to.
I did it on YouTube.
Let's get a beat going.
I'll do it. Oh, you can come up with it. Can you do that? Are you gonna do it?
I can do that.
Maybe I can do it backward. I can do it.